Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Ashley and today we're going to be talking about a super awesome case. I'm going to be telling you guys the true story behind the Conjuring 3 The Devil Made Me Do It case. So it is Creepmas week number 2 and I figured instead of doing like another vlog, I would talk to you guys about the true story. It is, at the end of the day, a Hollywood movie, so they added in a bunch of things to make it seem more interesting, so it ultimately ends up changing the actual events. So today I'm going to be telling you guys about that whole thing, the court case, along with the exorcism of David Glatzel, Arnie Johnson getting possessed. I also figured that'd be really cool to talk about this case since I actually met the real Arnie Johnson at Paracon. I will put it up on the time card, the Paracon video, if you would like to watch that. But yeah, like ever since I met the real Arnie Johnson and saw like the actual toy dinosaur, I thought it would be really cool to look into the case, so I did that night and wow. I'll also tell you guys what's in the movie that didn't actually happen in real life. So without further ado, let's jump into the Conjuring 3 The Devil Made Me Do It case.
And Arnie Johnson, who was a young man, but he made a fatal mistake. One night he said, and he screamed at these devils, "Take me on. Leave my little buddy alone."
This whole case started in July of 1980 when 11-year-old David Glatzel was helping then 19-year-old Arnie Johnson clean up a rental property in Connecticut. While inside the home, David experienced some very unusual things, to say the least. While walking in one of the bedrooms, David claimed to see a burnt and black looking old man. And while at this property, David also got pushed into a waterbed. While being pushed onto the waterbed, the old man was telling David that if him and his family moved into the property, then he would bring great harm onto them. When David returned home to his family, he continued to see the old man. David was seeing the old man so vivid that he was actually able to describe to his parents what he was seeing. So he describes the old man as having a white beard while also wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. The old man's skin was charred as if he had been burnt. Along with not only seeing the old man, David would have night terrors night after night. And not only would he have the tears, but he'd wake up with bruises and scratches all over his body. David woke up in the middle of the night screaming for his parents to come. He said that he had saw an old man that looked like an animal with sunken features. He had horns, pointy ears, and jagged teeth. Not only did David actually experience things, but the parents experienced things as well. They didn't experience as much as David, especially to that extent, but actually claimed to hear noises in the attic, which in some cases you never know if it's like an animal or a pipe, you know, that's what they claimed to hear. And of course David was having the worst experience thus far, especially compared to the parents. It's nothing like they had. He was terrified. And of course he's a child too, so 11 years old, he doesn't know what's going on. The family got to such a point that they had no idea what to do. So because they were so worried about David and about their home, they contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. And if you don't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are, they are world-renowned paranormal investigators, demonologists. They helped thousands of people, and they're actually based in Monroe, Connecticut, so they're very close to the location of this. So I don't think I mentioned this before, but this case took place in Brookfield, Connecticut. While in the home, Ed and Lorraine Warren actually experienced things as well. Ed heard growling and banging sounds coming from the basement. But that's not all. On one occasion, he saw a rocking chair move, and in another, he had saw David's toy dinosaur move on its own towards the family. But yeah, I think that's pretty terrifying. And this toy dinosaur, I think David built. So Lorraine actually saw a couple of things too, and in People's magazine, she said, and I quote, While Ed interviewed the boy, I saw a black, misty form next to him, which told me we were dealing with something of a negative nature. Soon the child was complaining that invisible hands were choking him, and there were red marks on him. He said that he had the feeling of being hit. Lorraine actually also heard David talk in unrecognizable voices, which is pretty crazy, but this actually happens or tends to happen a lot in like demonic possession cases. So he would recite verses from the Bible and even from a book called Paradise Lost, which is basically about like God and Adam and Eve and like all that type of stuff. I never read it, but that's what it said online. I could be wrong though. So Debbie, David's sister, claimed that he spit, kicked, what? That's like a tongue twister. That he spit, bit, kicked, swore, and flopped around head to toe like a rag doll. Ed claimed that, and I quote, "Right away, I knew there was something to this. I felt like a good fisherman when he knows there's something on the line." Ed also added that he thought that there were 43 different demons inside of David, and David was able to name every single one of them. In the movie, the priest's names actually changed, but a Catholic priest actually did go to the home to bless it. During one of the exorcisms, so this is a big turning point within this exorcism and case, which ultimately led to the outcome of the murder. Not of the murder, but like of the murder actually occurring. Yeah, so by the way, Arnie, if you've never seen the movie, Arnie is Debbie's boyfriend, so that's why he's actually in this whole situation. So he's dating Debbie, and David is Debbie's brother. So Arnie, which is so dumb of him, he felt bad for David and he taunted the demon. It is claimed that he actually shouted at the demon during one of the exorcisms. Arnie said, and I quote, "Take me on. Leave my little buddy alone. You will not see me doing that." After that point, of course, David improved, but, you know, unsurprisingly, Arnie didn't, because he taunted the demon and he told it to take him instead. There were actually a couple instances after this point that Arnie claims happened because of the demon. So at one instance, the demon took control of Arnie's car and forced it into a tree. And then in another, it caused for him to fall out of a tree. Now we're going to move on to Alan Bono's murder. So now I think it is actually very important to take into account that the murder that I'm about to talk about actually happened 7 months after the exorcism. So 7 months later, in February of 1981, Arnie decided to take the day off of work to spend the day with his girlfriend, Debbie, along with the kennel manager, Alan Bono. So Alan Bono, he was the manager of this kennel, and he also lives in an apartment above this kennel, and Debbie worked for him. So Debbie, Johnson, and Bono went to a restaurant. They had a lot of fun. They drank. In the process, they became drunk, and then they decided to return to the kennels. When they returned to the kennels, a heated fight broke loose. They quickly became very mad at each other. Let me make it a little bit more clear. Alan and Arnie became very annoyed with each other. What the argument is actually about is very unclear. Debbie claims, so Alan wanted his stereo fixed and Arnie was supposed to fix it for him. I'm not really sure what the whole, like, you know, thing was really about, but apparently she said that it was over stereo. But police think that it was a little bit more than that. They think that Alan and Debbie had more than a boss-worker relationship, that Arnie got jealous, and that's how Alan and Arnie got into a fight. That's the kind of role that it takes in the movie. If you've seen it, it takes more of a jealous twist to it. I think Arnie actually does fix the radio in the movie as well, but it takes more of a jealous twist, so I think it adds in both sides of the story. But what the argument is ultimately about is unclear. So during the argument, Alan sees Debbie's 9-year-old cousin, Mary, who had also been present, and he refused to let her go. So I'm not really too sure how Mary, the cousin, came into like this mix, but I guess she's there now somehow. So I don't know, that's kind of confusing. But that's what people say. I guess that's a story, that she was there. This led to Arnie confronting Alan about not letting Mary go, and then this led into him stabbing him repeatedly with a 5-inch pocket knife. And while he was stabbing, he was growling like an animal. You heard that right. He was growling like an animal. So Bono suffered 4 or 5 tremendous wounds in the chest area, well, mainly in the chest area. 7 hours later, after this incident, Alan Bono was pronounced dead. Arnie, however, was not on the crime scene. He was gone. Like, he left. He was found 7 miles away from the dog kennels. 7. So in the movie, when he's walking like on the road, I think that's what he was actually doing in real life. That's terrifying. So there hadn't actually been a murder in a long time in Brookfield, Connecticut. They actually were almost hitting their 200 years of like having no violence, I guess, or like not violence, but murders. So this was the first murder in Brookfield, Connecticut's 193 years, in the first and like the 30 years since the police had police reports. So now we're going to move on to Arnie's trial, Arnie Johnson's trial, which is very popular, especially because, well, you will see why it is very popular if you don't already know. So Arnie's trial began on October 28 in Connecticut's Superior Court in Danbury. So Arnie's lawyer, Martin Manila, pleaded not guilty on the grounds of being possessed by a demon, and he claimed that the demon is the reason why he killed Alan and that he was manipulated by the demon. So the reason why this was so popular is because This was the first known court case in the US to have this type of plea, to be not guilty on the grounds of demonic possession. So one thing that the lawyer said that I think is very interesting to hear is, and I quote, "The courts have dealt with the existence of God, and now they're going to have to deal with the existence of the devil." The judge completely threw this whole plea away because he felt like it was completely irrelevant and unscientific, like it can't be proven. So after deliberating for 3 whole days, Arnie Kyan Johnson was convicted to 10 to 30 years in prison on the grounds of first-degree manslaughter. This is pretty crazy, actually. So yes, he had 10 to 30 years, but he only served 5 years of that. 5 years for killing a man. He served 5 years for murder. Well, first-degree manslaughter. While in prison, Arnie actually ended up marrying Debbie. They got married in prison. I'm kind of surprised that she wanted to marry him after he murdered somebody, but if it was because of demonic possession, then I can kind of see why. I mean, she was there during the whole thing, so she saw ultimately how he was, and only her marry Arnie. Well, actually was Mary there when he got stabbed? Because I never heard anything about her. Like, well, as far as I know, Debbie, Arnie, and Alan, who had passed away, are really the only ones that know how he acted that day. Obviously, that is why this case is so popular, because it was the first case, like I said before, to say that you're not guilty by demonic possession. So that's why this is called the Devil Made Me Do It case. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what wasn't real in the movie. As you can tell by this story, there was no Satan worshiper. There was no occultist. That whole thing is just for drama purposes. Same for the Jessica and Katie case. Like in the movie, they followed this whole thing where Jessica and Katie, like it was like the same type of case as Arnie's case. That's also obviously not true. Both things, like the Satan worshiper and the Jessica and Katie case, were really just used to add more like depth to the movie, because if they really just put like the true events, it would have just ended right after the court case. And I think they also added in Satan worshiper and all that because it kind of showed Ed and Lorraine Warren's bond. It showed their bond for each other, their love for each other. That was brought out so much. I think that was just there to show like how strong their connection was for each other. It's kind of confusing because in the beginning they say how it was based on a true story, but just like I said in the intro, it's a Hollywood movie, so most of it is most likely made up. There's some truth to every movie. But yeah, that's all the information I have. Like, that was a lot to cover. But yeah, let's go into the outro. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Also be sure to comment down below if you guys would like to see more videos like this. I'm always researching on different hauntings and stuff like this, so if you'd like to see more videos that are similar to this, then be sure to comment that down below. I hope your guys' Christmas season is going absolutely amazing, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, I hope your holiday season is going amazing as well. I hope you guys all have an amazing day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!